It is a slightly somber moment that we are doing this podcast. We don't often delve into politics, but given everything that's happening in Ukraine, and it feels a little trivial to be talking about movies and DVDs and Blu-rays at the moment. So Tim and I do want to send our very best, and our hearts go out to the people of Ukraine at this incredibly difficult point in time. Anyone who's listened to this podcast for a long time knows that, Tim was in the service, and the Russians were always they were the bad guys when you were on the front lines of the Cold War, and it feels like this is a resurrection of that a little bit.
Well, look, man, it's just my age at that particular time. I joined the Air Force in 1979. I was in the Air Force for 6 years, 1979, 1985. The central reason for the United States military at that time was to deter, if not debilitate, the Soviet threat. I served in nuclear missile silos in Nebraska, North Dakota. I served on B-52 air command bases, SAC bases, as we call them, some TAC bases, tactical air command bases. Serviced aircraft on the aircraft carriers. I served on the USS Enterprise. There were a whole bunch of Enterprises. I served on the Nimitz class Enterprise. And everything I was doing for that entire period of time was about the Soviet threat. And what's funny is, we thought we won. we did. Yeah. We literally thought we won. Yeah, and I suppose that we did. 1989, the wall comes down. You and I talked. We're on the radio show, folks. You go listen to this week's Film Week. Great movie we talk about. Servants.
SCPR.org. Yeah.
SPCR. And Servants we talk about. And Servants is set in Czechoslovakia.
1980.
And this is the word, Czechoslovakia. Nobody ever says that word anymore.
No, it's Czech Republic and Slovakia.
But when you and I were kids, that was a country that appeared in all kinds of movies and TV shows. I think I said on the show, a whole bunch of Mission Impossibles set in Czechoslovakia. But it's not a word that comes out of people's mouths anymore, because it's a place that literally doesn't exist anymore. But it did. And, everything that happened then in that police state, it's just bizarre to me that it is that in a certain sort of way, we're still fighting that old war, that old Cold War, I should say. In a certain sort of way, that Cold War never did really end.
Well, that's the danger of having people like Putin who were of a certain age when the Cold War ended and weren't able to let it go.
Yeah, even older than me. Yeah, so yeah.
Yeah, it is a thing, and this is a part of my life too. I mean, my mother grew up under Hitler and then fled the Russians. So Hitler and Stalin were the two boogeymen of her childhood. It's when her childhood ended, and two of my mother's cousins committed suicide after being raped by Soviet soldiers. On March 5th of this year, it will be the anniversary of when my mother fled her home and ran from the Russians. So that's coming up, in about a week, and that's an ominous anniversary for me in particular. So.
Well, people listening to the DigiGods podcast right now thinking to themselves, whenever you put movies, we're talking about movies. But here's this history that we're talking about right now. If you want to understand this history, one of the best places to go is to the movies. The history of what we're talking about has been documented in movies, since Kino. Since the Russians started making movies. They actually started making movies before we did. And all of that history, has been documented. And I was joking about Fiddler on the Roof. But when homie tells him, get off my land. Yeah. The land that he's talking about is Ukrainian land. That's and who right. he's talking to is a Russian. That's literally right there in that movie.
No.
So, what are you going to do?
It's there's another movie I'd recommend to people too, which is kind of famous. It's the movie that took out the most ads for an Oscar nomination of any movie in history in the trades. It's the Finnish film Talvisoita, made in 1987. They advertised in the trades every day for months and months and months. Didn't get a nomination, but it is a terrific film. It's the story of the Winter War, which took place after Hitler invaded Poland. Stalin figured the eyes of the world were elsewhere, so he attacked Finland, and those outnumbered Finns fought just like the Ukrainians are fighting now. They fought tooth and nail, and they held the Russians back. And it's a tremendous film, and it's very, very timely. So I would urge any Ukrainians listening to think about the Winter War in Finland. Think about the 6-Day War in Israel. There are a lot of historical precedents for the little outnumbered guy that stands tall and fights for the homeland.
Hey, people forget, as we lamented the United States, America's exit from Afghanistan, and we sort of went back and forth about that. And again, and I get it, it's a little messy thing going on, but I'm like, the Russians were in Afghanistan for 3 decades before us. And you know what happened to them? They got their asses kicked. And they were sent home. And that Rambo movie, which one was that?
It was 3.
That was 3. In 1980, whatever the hell, notwithstanding. So, great powers. They sometimes fall into these, so, you're foolish to think, hey, England, the United Kingdom, and that Nazi blitzkrieg, Churchill didn't give a damn, and the stiff upper lip and all. What was the movie a couple of years ago? Churchill.
Finest Hour.
Finest Hour. Thank you very much. So in the movies, this history can be found in the movies. Resolve can be found in the movies. Actual examples of the rejection of totalitarianism can be found. So it's not so much of a silly conversation for us to have here on the Synagogue Show.
Well, let's move into some news that we, try to elevate this a little bit. Elevate it by going to obituaries. So on the last show, we did miss one, which was the passing of Jean-Jacques Benex, the great French, the francophone filmmaker who made such great films as Diva and Betty Blue and IP4, The Island of the Pachyderms, and some just really great, kind of some of the more awesome movies of the 80s. As it happens, I had dinner with Benex once. My wife, worked for a bond company, completion bond company, for many years, and the head of the bond company, who is actually all over Lost in La Mancha, the documentary, because he was that was skin off of his back at the time. But he used to be an agent. He used to be Jean-Jacques Benex's agent. And when my wife was working for him, Benex and his wife were in town one day, and they were going to come over for dinner. And he said to us, "Hey, Benex and his wife are coming over for dinner. Would you guys like to join us?" I said, "Yeah, totally, like for sure." And so we had a wonderful dinner, just, the 6 of us, a little private, home cooked dinner. And it was amazing. I was able to talk to Benex just like a person to person. He's just the sweetest man and so creative and so down to earth. And, it was a rare moment. And I was grateful for that. And then we also lost Ivan Reitman. That was unexpected. Died in his sleep.
Yeah, and Ivan was up there, but nevertheless, just completely unexpected because he was so vibrant, Ivan. I mean, there's all kinds of footage of Ivan out and about doing stuff, putting together. If you look at Ivan's IMDb, hell, Ivan's been dead 2 weeks and he's still got 15 movies. And
I know. we got one of them today. Got the new Ghostbusters movie. We're talking about it today.
I was still making movies. So Ivan, who was not born here, who was born where? Canada. If I'm not mistaken. No. Ivan was born in what Yugoslavia. Ukraine.
Was it Ukraine or Yugoslavia? No, it's something like that. He grew up in Canada. Hang on, let's find this out.
But Ivan was born in one of the countries. Excuse me. that we were just talking about a moment ago, and I don't think that I knew that back in the 80s. Slovakia, which of course would have been Czechoslovakia when he was born there, which I just think is absolutely fascinating. And then Canada. and then here, and he was not really, Ivan sort of came by directing. He's a producer first, and all that kind of stuff, and then he was like, this directing thing doesn't seem that complicated.
But, he made, looks between Stripes and Ghostbusters and even stuff like Twins and Junior. It's a great career. I mean, some of the funniest, sweetest, silliest movies of that period, especially the 80s. And Ghostbusters alone gets you in the record books.
And I don't even want to get into his producing career. It's just ridiculous. And I was serious about all those movies that are still in various stages of production because Ivan Reitman was shepherded. He didn't tap out. He just kept on going. And then, hey, man, may I be so lucky.
So let's talk about Academy Awards.
Sally Kellerman, though.
Oh, and Sally Kellerman, yes.
Sally Kellerman. It was just like yesterday, or something like that, maybe day before yesterday. And because, hey, look, Hot Lips, the original Hot Lips Houlihan, we think about the TV show and Alan Alda and Loretta Swit and all those folks. And that's great. That's wonderful. But Sally Kellerman, she was the original. In that movie and in so many other wonderful films, made better by her presence, even though we don't necessarily think about her in those movies, but Sally Kellerman was there. And for the life of me, I was a moderator, for some panel, for that Rodney Dangerfield film she was in, Back to School.
I do.
They screened that, and Sally Kellerman came out, and Rodney Rodney was still alive. He came out, and I was the moderator for this wacky panel. Sitting literally between Rodney Dangerfield and Sally Kellerman. And, I just thought this is just the most strange and wonderful thing that has ever happened. Had to be. So anyway, love me some Sally Kellerman.
Sally Kellerman, also legendary fixture in the history of Star Trek. Where No Man Has Gone Before. That was, it's so sad. Really sad loss. We should also mention that before we get into the Oscars, the Air Talk Film Week 20th Annual Oscar Preview Show is back live again. So Tim and I will be on stage with the other Film Week critics at the Ace Theater at the Ace Hotel on Sunday, March 20th from 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock p.m. That's Sunday, March 20th, the Ace Theater in downtown LA, 1 to 3 p.m. All of us on stage again for the first time in 2 years, talking about the Oscars. And you can go to kpcc.org to get tickets. And I'm trying to think. Let's see here. The actual page is axs.com /events/421714. And that should get you there. But either way, if you just look for Film Week 20th Annual Oscar Preview at the Ace Hotel, that'll get you there. And there are tickets on sale. So if anybody's listening, we'd love to see you there and feel like life is getting to be a little bit normal again. Other than that, Tim, what do you think about the Oscar nominations?
Well, here, what are we looking at here? Of all these movies, I think one of them, maybe two, it's a little hard to tell, actually made $1.50 at the box. Dune did well.
And Dune was nominated for everything except director. Apparently, it directed itself.
It's one of those situations that the Academy, with the 10 and 1 and the 5 and the other, and what are you going to do? Kind of goofy. And then I look at some of these other ones. So like Power of the Dog. This is one that everybody has been talking about, and Campion Jane, love me some Jane. But here's the deal: Power of the Dog, even if you like it quite a lot, it's Jane Campion's 5th best film.
I agree.
It's literally her 5th best film. You have to watch all of the other ones first. Piano, start wherever you want. I'm a Bright Star guy.
Yeah, I love Bright Star.
And the Sweetie Angel and type. Oh, you got to go through all of those films, and then maybe you watch Power of the Dog. So it's because if unless you already know that canon, there's no point in starting with this. Yeah. If we're talking about Campion, So, I don't know. But everybody just seems to be, and I like Benedict in that film. But no, if we're talking about Jane Campion, then we're talking about the piano, or we're not talking.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting. There are only 4 films that are nominated for picture, director, screenplay that kind of hit all of the key categories that should make you eligible. And that's Drive My Car, Power of the Dog, Belfast, and Licorice Pizza. Mm-hmm. Now, Licorice Pizza is only nominated for Paul Thomas Anderson. It's got no acting nominations, so I take that out of the picture. I take Drive My Car out because it's a 3-hour Japanese film. It's not. That's not going to be. So that, to my mind, for Best Picture, leaves Power of the Dog versus Belfast. And I think because Power of the Dog is a Netflix movie and basically just a revenge film, and Jane Campion's 5th best film, I don't think it stands a chance. Belfast is heartfelt. It's his 400 Blows. Is it Kenneth Branagh's best film? No, it's probably like his 5th best film too. But he's also never won anything. Jane Campion has an Oscar for writing the piano. Mm-hmm. Branagh does not have an Oscar. But you know what Branagh did do this year? This blew my mind. Even the Academy didn't figure this out. On their little sidebars where they mention all the records that have been broken and this and the first person and 5th person, this and that, they missed it. Somebody else figured this out. Kenneth Branagh this year became the first person in history to be Oscar nominated in 7 different categories.
Really?
Yes.
Did you figure this out? Did you figure this out?
I didn't figure it out. Somebody else mentioned it. I read this somewhere else. I was like, really? 7? What is he, a cinematographer and a composer? What the hell? What 7 could he possibly be nominated for?
Because I'm obviously actor and director and producer.
No. Here we go. Producer this year, obviously, for Belfast, right? He's been nominated. He's nominated again this year for director and has been as director before. Yeah. He was previously nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay. Okay. For Henry V. Okay. This is an original screenplay, so he's now got a screen. Okay, that's 4. Okay. Now, here are the other categories he's been nominated for. Best Actor, Best Supporting Actor.
Which one was that?
That was, I think, for
was it that Thriller?
No, it was the Nolan film. It was Dunkirk. I think he's for Dunkirk.
Okay.
So but he's supporting actor. And then that's 6. 7, Best Short Film.
Oh, well, that one I would have never. What, 30 years ago?
No, like 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago. It was like 2008, 9, 10, somewhere in there. He was nominated for Best Short Film.
Okay, that's the one that completely escaped me.
I know, but still, kind of amazing. First person, 7 different categories. It's never happened before. So part of me feels like, you know what, he's had a good year. He's kind of having a resurgence with these Agatha Christie movies. I kind of feel like Belfast may wind up being the movie to beat.
And we're talking Best Picture, Best Director.
Best Picture. I think Campion's going to get director.
Campion director. Yeah. Because see, to me, I think the dark horse there is the film for Best Picture is the film whose director is not nominated, and it's King Richard. It's the Green. What was that movie? Green.
And we are gonna talk about King Richard today because it's out on disc. But
now Ronaldo's not. But then again, they might give Best Actor to Will, thus covering himself.
I think they will. I think Will, because we talked about Will and that colorism thing when it kind of became an issue when he first optioned the property.
Oh yeah.
And people were all over him and saying, you're not dark enough to play, Richard Williams and all that. And then that kind of went away. And I think after seeing the film, everybody is okay with it now because he's so good. He captures the spirit of the man. But yeah, I think he's going to win for sure. I think he's due. I think this is his career moment. He's got that down. So I think they probably cover themselves there. But let's now talk about taking 8 categories out and sticking them in the basement so that they're awarded ahead of time. Everybody hates this. This is the last swan song of Dawn Hudson, who's the outgoing CEO, and her COO. Christine Simmons, who has no movie experience. She came from the LA Sparks and Pepsi and a whole lot of corporate marketing things. And I think they conjured this up in tandem with the ABC ad execs, and no one is happy with it. So, I mean, it's disrespectful, especially to the short categories, but particularly editing. Come on, editing and sound and You know, there's a score for crying out loud. The composers are talking about boycotting the ceremony. Like all the nominated composers are saying, "Screw it, I'm not going."
How do you even do that with score? Because usually with score, we would hear the scores across the a little bit of each one of the scores. So across then the word, the whole thing. It's just insane. It's all nutty, and of course, it has to do with the push and pull between a desire on the part for the Academy to get numbers, get the ratings up, and of course the intention that the members of the Academy have, which is to honor their own. That's literally what they're doing, and those two things don't go together.
No.
And you have to pick one or the other. And I think that you're going to have to sacrifice. Look, the audience is smaller and smaller anyway. I don't know.
Better movies. Make better movies. You work with the studios. You make better movies. You talk about how you. I mean, look, the most popular Oscar cast. It had nothing to do with how long the show was. It's about the movies that are nominated. It was when E.T. and Titanic were nominated. It's the only time more than 50 million people watched that show. Was when E.T. and Titanic were nominated, and there were fewer people back then. So I think they just need
and fewer distractions.
Fewer distractions.
In terms of the rest of media. Yes, but you have to have a situation, I think, where the movies that are being nominated are movies that real people in the real world have seen
care about
and care about, and to that end, the Academy itself has got to look. I love Drive My Car. I really appreciate it. You and I talked about it on the radio show, but I know very well that nobody within literally 100 miles, not 100 miles, literally 20 miles of me right now, where I'm sitting now, there's no one within 20 miles of me who's seen Drive My Car. I would be very confident in saying that. And I'm pretty sure it's true. So I have to ask myself now, the other year, a couple of years ago, what won? Parasite? I think it was Parasite.
Yeah, 2 years ago was Parasite,
which was a different kind of film, still a foreign film, but a different kind of Korean film. And it was
much more commercial. Much more commercial.
It was a commercial hit in Korea. It was a commercial hit. But still, it was fairly obscure to your regular walking around everyday kind of person. Now,
people discovered it after the Oscars
because of and then on Amazon and all of that. Now, as I poke Drive My Car, I have to say that for me, at least, Licorice Pizza would live in the same spot. Because in reality, if you're not a part of a fairly rarefied community.
Oh, yeah, it's true.
Licorice Pizza is obscure to most everyday walking around people, as is Drive My Car.
If you were not living in Los Angeles in the 1970s, 90% of Licorice Pizza will make no sense to you.
Literally, jokes that are really, really funny will mean nothing to most people. No. Most people watching that movie. And
it's very inside baseball.
So, so I can poke Drive My Car, but I got to poke Licorice Pizza too. But then what are we saying? Are we saying that, what was the Bond movie?
No Time to Die.
Should No Time to Die be nominated for Best Picture right now? It made money too. Relatively
the
speaking.
Studios, bottom line is the studios need to make mid-level, big budget movies like they used to. They just do. They need to get back to making the kinds of movies that get Oscar nominations and win. And Dune is a good start, but they just need to step it up. And the Academy's got to work with them to do it.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Look, if you're just talking me, that Dune slot. Dune shouldn't be nominated for the Academy.
No, I hear you. I think it should be down to 5 nominees again. Let me just say, of the categories that they're crapping on with the shorts, there are some things that really bother me about the way that they're approaching this. For example, we talked about all the shorts on the radio just a few days ago.
Yeah,
and it's a mixed bag. Like the animated films, the live action short films. I'm thinking, boy, we picked the wrong year to not be in the mix because we would have won this year. It's really a weak field. It's a weak field.
Yeah.
But the documentary shorts are tremendous. They're tremendous, really especially the simplest one, which is probably going to win. I mean, you never know with shorts, but it's your favorite. It's Queen of Basketball.
Yeah, about Lucy. Yeah.
Now, I mean, here's a chance to honor a movie. I mean, after the whole Oscars so white thing and inclusion and diversity and all of the stuff that the Academy has been trying to get this monkey off its back, and you have a chance this year to honor the only woman ever drafted into the NBA, a legendary black female athlete, Lucia Harris, in a short documentary produced by Shaquille O'Neal. And you are going to shuttle that off the live show. You are not going. You have a chance to put Shaquille O'Neal on live television, standing next to the podium when a film wins an Academy Award, and you've decided, no, for the sake of ratings, we're not going to let Shaquille O'Neal possibly be live on television.
No, it's insane.
That's
idiotic. We haven't absolutely decided that film is going to win, but it's probably going to win.
It's probably going to win
because it is, in fact, that good. And that would be just a beautiful, beautiful sort of platform and stage, and to have all of that sort of go down. Lucy, it just the whole shebang.
I don't understand. The chance that it's going to happen is worth putting it on the live show.
Exactly.
And the fact that they've just forsworn that and said, you know what, Shaquille O'Neal may wind up, walking up to co-collect an Academy Award, but we're not even going to. We'd rather just totally shine that off. We'd rather have the Twitter Award. Like, everybody vote for, on Twitter what their favorite. Like, I just don't.
Yeah, that's nuts.
It's going to be it's embarrassing. I'm actually urging everyone to go on Twitter and to vote for whatever your favorite film is. To, instead of vote for your favorite film, vote for the 8 categories that they're crapping on.
Yeah. Well, I'm with you. I'm with you on that. And anyway. I don't know. What are we? We're back at the theater in Hollywood. What's the theater in Hollywood now? It's the Kodak. What do they call it now?
Oh, it's the Kodak. Yes, it's the Kodak now.
Back to Kodak.
It was the Dolby for a moment.
Yeah, for a moment. I guess they're doing the whole, close off the streets, build the grandstands, a red carpet arriving, and the limos thing that we've done for years.
We're back to it.
I think we're back to that, right? So that might be a reason for people to tune in to see the sort of grandeur of the thing in and of itself again. But I don't know. 3 hosts, Wanda. Who do we got now? We got
Amy Schumer,
and Wanda, and who's the dude?
No, it's
Trevor Noah.
No, it's not Trevor Noah. It's what's her name? Oh gosh, it's another comic actress.
Yeah. Sister. What's her name from those movies? I forget what her name is.
Yeah,
but Yeah, but either way, the fact that I can't remember is indicative.
Let me just say, if they cared about ratings, they would do one of 2 things. They'd go back to Kevin Hart and say, "We're sorry about that. You've had some real hit movies, and we love you, and this will be a really great thing. It's like the redemption of Kevin Hart. We've come back to you." Or if they really cared about ratings and didn't care about Twitter and controversy and thought that let's just throw a Hail Mary, man. Let's just do it. Dave Chappelle. Get Dave Chappelle to host the Oscars.
You know what's funny? To me,
uncensored.
Uncensored Dave Chappelle. To me, I would actually go to the well and drag Billy Crystal's old ass back out onto the stage. Billy Crystal hosted that show how many times in a row back? What's this?
It was like 7, 8, 9, something like that. It was yeah.
And
I love it.
It was just all fantastic when Billy Crystal
Regina Hall.
Regina Hall.
Thank you, Regina Hall. Who's lovely, but I just don't,
it's lovely.
But you know what? Ricky Gervais. Go for Ricky.
Ricky was funny.
Get Ricky. Oh my gosh. Ricky to go from Golden Globes to the Oscars and let him be uncensored too. That would bring the ratings. So any of those are good choices, any of those. I even think Jerry Seinfeld. I've always thought Seinfeld would be a great host.
Well, or go back to it used to be the host wasn't about a comedian or somebody funny. Who was it? David Niven or Charlton Heston I think the first sort of demonstrably funny host. You'll know better.
It was Bob Hope.
It was Bob Hope, right? But for a long time, it was like, the people of stature.
Frank Capra hosted it back in the 30s.
So I don't know. The equivalent might be Denzel Washington. Maybe I guess he can't host it but you know what I'm saying. It was people of stature. And it wasn't about being funny. You know, we're doing a serious show about some serious shit.
Once this Academy management is gone, once they clean house, hopefully they buck up and they get some new blood in there and really, really clean house and make some tough choices. But anyway, well, let's get into DVDs and Blu-rays. The world is better than it appears at the moment. So I want to knock out some really, really great PBS documentaries here first. I'm just going to go through these fairly quickly. These are all great. I mean, really, really great stuff. So, from PBS, Tulsa, The Fire and the Forgotten, a centennial exploration of the 1921 race massacre, Tulsa Massacre. Absolutely excellent. This is from WNET Group, who just produced the hell out of these things, along with Saybook Productions and some others. But produced and directed by Jonathan Silvers, who is, I don't know as a documentarian, but absolutely tremendous. It's a wonderful exploration, not just of the event itself, but the history since. What's changed? What hasn't changed? It's absolutely beautiful. It's powerful film. 90 minutes long. Absolutely the perfect length. A Frontline, I just don't know what they do at Frontline that they never miss a beat. But the virus that shook the world is just tremendous. They shot this thing in 21 different countries, 21 different crews, just looking at everything to do about COVID-19, its geopolitical impact. It's really, really powerful. It's almost 3 hours long, and it doesn't feel a second of it. It just blows right by. And much has changed since they even made this. But really, if you want to if you're willing to relive it a little bit, that's tremendous.
It's not, work your way through that history. That's a hell of a piece, man. That is a hell of a piece.
It's a hell of a piece. Finding Your Roots with Henry Louis Gates Jr. is another wonderful WETA Washington DC production. Just doing what Dr. Gates does, which is talking to celebrities and telling them where they came from. And
who's he get out of? Who's
Glenn Close?
Oh, I saw that one. I saw that
right.
one.
Glenn Close, Roseanne Cash, Jim Gaffigan, Don Lemon, Maria Hinojosa, John Lithgow, Jane Lynch, Audra McDonald, who, by the way, is tremendous right now on The Gilded Age. If you haven't watched The Gilded Age, she's really good on it.
Good storyline too, by the way.
Really good storyline. Tony Shalhoub and Pharrell Williams.
I saw most of those, but the Tony Shalhoub was absolutely hysterical.
It's great, right?
Yeah,
it's great.
Yeah.
It's just wonderful. I mean, this just so much fun. It makes you want to go do your own family research. Citizen Hearst, America's first media mogul. This is an American experience documentary, obviously about William Randolph Hearst. Mm-hmm. It's the real life Citizen Kane, and what a story it is. I mean, it's actually more amazing than Citizen Kane suggests, but it's tremendous. This is really, really excellent. It's long. I mean, it's nearly 4 hours, and it's packed with all the madness of his life. It really is.
Yeah.
America After 9/11 is another Frontline doc. This is just under 2 hours, and pretty tough to watch. It's kind of an ongoing, a work in progress about the way the world has changed and the ways in which we don't necessarily see the shadow of 9/11 where it may still be, how 9/11 still impacts our lives and all of these kinds of covert ways. It's really, really tremendous. Got a Blu-ray doc here from Ken Burns, Muhammad Ali. And it is, this is long. Like, if you've got a day to burn, this is nearly 8 hours of intense Muhammad Ali. And it's not just Muhammad Ali and his fights and his life and, when he was Cassius Clay and when he wouldn't, enlist in the military, he wouldn't be drafted to Vietnam and all of those things. But it's also what he represented at a particular point in time culturally. Mm-hmm. And you and I could probably speak to this extensively, because it was, we grew up in that moment.
Yep.
When the world was just changing. And, I remember my father would never refer to him as Muhammad Ali. Would always refer to him as Cassius Clay. But but it was out of reverence because when he was Cassius Clay, he drew my father's admiration on an unbelievable level. And my father was, born in the 19th century. And so my father came from, what was just borderline Reconstruction era South, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was really a very segregated moment. And, for my father to suddenly admire more than anyone else in the media world this fairly militant black man was quite a stretch,
It reflected.
It was a change.
Yeah, exactly. And this is what's interesting. My grandfather, who would have been around your father's age, right? Just relatively speaking, he wouldn't call him Muhammad Ali either. He called him Cassius Clay.
Yeah.
And because both black, we're all black here, right? But he was from a very particular cult, Southern Tennessee, like the Southern Baptist, that boy, his mama called him, I could hear him now. His mama called him Cassius.
Right.
So I'm calling him Cassius. And that's all, and the whole thing, Nation of Islam and all that kind of stuff. By the time, though, Muhammad Ali, middle 70s, Thriller Manila and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Then he started calling him Muhammad Ali.
Yeah.
Which was, he won him over.
And I think my father might have as well. I mean, my father passed in 1978, but I think he may have turned that corner too, if I think back. But it was quite a thing. I remember because, my father loved boxing, but when he was a kid, boxing was a thing that people like Jack Dempsey did.
Yeah.
It was those white guys that did it bare knuckle and they did that pose with the curled fist, right? It was Sonny Liston. Kind of, he opened it up. It was, he made it a multiracial thing and said, what, boxing is for everybody.
Yeah.
And then, then it started to change. And, Muhammad Ali took it into a political place where you would have thought that it would have alienated a lot of people, especially people of my father's generation.
Yeah.
But the fact that he went out there and he said, I am the greatest. There was ego and there was bravura and there was a fearlessness about owning who you were. Anyway, Ken Burns gets it all.
Good movie, yeah.
Watch it. It's 8 hours, man. It's Ken Burns just going to the well deep and hard, but it really is. It's just so tremendously good. Also here, Discovering Your Warrior Spirit with DJ Vanas. Might sound a little bit new agey or so, but it really is. It's a great way to kind of look at yourself through a different prism. Look at your talents through a different prism, and find that best part of yourself. And it does it through sort of Native American traditions and ideas and practices. It's really it's a very, very interesting, it's good. It's worth watching. Mysteries of Mental Illness, Exploring the Evolution in Understanding Mental Illness is also highly recommended. Mental illness is still a mystery to most of us, but there are 4 different episodes here that go into all these different frontiers of the mind and what we know and what we don't know. And, it's helpful, especially if you have a loved one that might be suffering. Downing of a Flag, the story of a symbol that has haunted American democracy for over 150 years. This is all about the Confederate battle flag. Yeah. Let us remember, not the Confederate flag. The Stars and Bars was not the flag of the Confederate States. Their flag was this ugly, unremarkable thing that nobody would ever bat an eye at. But it's the battle flag that is so controversial. And it's why it is controversial, because what a lot of those southern states were putting on their state flags and flying along their state flags was not the Confederate flag. It was a battle flag.
Yep.
Which suggests that the war is still ongoing. And that's the intimation that made this thing so controversial. And anyway, this gets to, the South Carolina removal in 2015 of the flag and all that stuff. So anyway,
it's good history. It's a history.
It's good history. And then we got a thing here called Professor T. Crime is his obsession.
Oh yeah.
This is also PBS. But this is
a good series.
It's a good series. This is dramatic. It's not a documentary. I just want to put it in with the PBS stuff. But yeah, it's a good little kind of interesting intellectual detective crime semi-procedural thing with some good performances in it. So give that a recommendation too. And then some non-PBS docs that I want to give mention to.
Ooh, yeah.
Brian Wilson, Long Promised Road,
yeah.
about the genius of the Beach Boys, and some great interviews here. This is on Blu-ray. Bruce Springsteen, Elton John, Linda Perry, a lot of great people. Gustavo Dudamel, they're all interviewed on this thing. I mean, excellent, thorough, very, very complete look at the genius of Brian Wilson, and all of the all the demons that he brought with him.
Yeah.
Prisms and Portraits, the films of Rosine Mabacum.
Oh, yeah.
Had you ever heard of Rosine Mabacum?
I had, yeah.
I had never heard of her. This is completely new to me, but wonderful, wonderful documentary film. She's from Cameroon. She works in Belgium and has made some wonderful documentaries, and Icarus has put them together on one complete set. And there's some wonderful stuff here. The Two Faces of a Bamileke Woman, which gets into basically her Cameroonian identity, and she's trying to reconnect with that and sort of explore it. Delphine's Prayers, which is this absolutely devastating portrait of a woman in Cameroon who had to turn to prostitution in order to just make ends meet. Awful, horrible, but ultimately very, very life affirming movie. Some really wonderful stuff here. So anyway,
she's a very young woman. She's only in her 40s. These are all very contemporary films. Last 5, 10, 15 years. No, not 15 years. 5, 10 years, really, all those films you're talking about. I see that Mahalia Jackson documentary. Man.
Yeah.
I watched that one. That was really, really good.
Beautiful. I think she gets overshadowed a lot too, because she was a contemporary with so many other gospel singers and other great singers that were sort of in her same space that people kind of, they overlook her too often. But what a tremendous lady. I mean, a long, beautiful career, and a part of so many wonderful historical moments. Yeah.
Classic. In a lot of movies too. She's in Imitation of Life. She's in St. Louis Blues. Mahalia Jackson, The Best Man. She's in, she interesting self career. Mahalia Jackson, love that. Yeah, I also saw. I'm sorry.
I was going to say that was Emmy nominated, by the way, and that's also not a documentary, but we're slotting it in here with that.
I also saw Gorbachev Heaven. Did you see that one?
Boy, that is talk about timely, right?
Man. These things keep coming back around. I guess he's like what, 98, 99 or something like that.
Is he that old now?
Yeah. Wow. At the making of this movie.
How sad he must be.
It's an interesting thing. There are only two people on screen in that whole movie. One of them is him, and the other one is Vladimir Putin. He's not interviewed, but in the background, Vladimir is on a number of screens during New Year's and whatever, giving those speeches that he gives. And Gorbachev is like watching Vladimir, and then Vitaly, the guy who made this movie, is asking Gorbachev questions about Putin. And it's really, really interesting. He's old as fuck. He can barely move, but his mind is sharp. Is sharp. And he's very clear on the history of things. So a hell of a film. Watch it now, because there's a straight through line from
is there.
Right till today. Yes, sir.
Tim Whirlybird. We talked about this on the radio.
Yeah.
We get to now say the things we couldn't say on the radio.
Bob Tour, man. Bob. And we were. Yeah, we saw this when this guy started. Bob Tour was a helicopter pilot back in the middle 90s until whenever, and he was one of the first guys to sort of do that. Crazy helicopter pilot thing.
They became famous. He and his wife, Marika Gerard, they became famous because they had this helicopter. They were like flying around. I think it was rented at the time. They didn't own the helicopter, but they're getting all of this aerial footage, and then they're selling it, right? I mean, they were freelance news videographers. Yeah. And so you get something great, you get a high-speed chase, you sell it to somebody, or, you're making money that way. And they eventually became incredibly successful because they were the ones that found OJ in the Bronco. Mm-hmm. And that footage just went nuclear. And this is about that incredibly toxic marriage of theirs, and their daughter, by the way, is a very successful
Katie Tour.
Katie Tur is a very successful journalist right now.
MSNBC, I think.
That's right.
And Bob, whose name now is because Zoe, who Bob went through.
He transitioned.
Yeah, that's what they call it, right? Transition.
And this is what was dumb. So Tim and I are reviewing this on Film Week, and we're going to talk. And we were told, oh yeah, no, our policy is we can't dead name. We're like, but Bob is all over the documentary.
Yeah,
as Bob.
Yeah,
and Zoe is interviewed, in which Zoe says, "When I was Bob." And like everyone in the documentary says Bob like 900,000 times. Yeah. And you're telling us that in reviewing the movie about Bob Tur, we can't say Bob Tur? Yeah, that's the policy.
It's ridiculous.
It's like, oh, come on.
It's
stop.
ridiculous. And of course, effectively what we are reporters. We're reporters. We're journalists.
Yeah.
And this is just journalistic correctness is all we're engaging in. There was a man named Bob Tur who became a woman named Zoe Tur. But we're going to refer to them, those people, in the context of that time, what they were called by. That's all we were talking about doing. But it was completely bananas. That movie is it's a kind of interesting movie about a very interesting period. That we actually both sort of lived through in terms of what they were actually doing.
Constantly.
And the fires and it was a lot of Bob Tur up there, and doing interesting sort of thing, man.
6 more docs real quickly here. The from the Milestone Collection, Mystery of Picasso, which is the famous film by Henri Georges Clouzot, which the legendary French director Clouzot, and this was basically he was very good friends with Picasso, and in 1955. They wanted to capture. Wanted to get together and sort of show his process, and that's what this film is. It was released in 1956, and it's only 78 minutes long, but it is maybe the best film ever about who Picasso really was in the moment of his creativity. Yeah. Harry Chapin, When in Doubt, Do Something, is a beautiful doc about Harry Chapin. I love Harry Chapin. He was one of the great balladers of the 60s and 70s, along with who else? Gordon Lightfoot, and there were just so many from that period. And Harry Chapin did Cats in the Cradle, which is one of my all-time favorite songs. I can't listen to it without crying. Yeah. And a lot of people interviewed here, from Billy Joel to Pat Benatar to Harry Belafonte to Pete Seeger and Bruce Springsteen again. Bob Geldof always shows up and stuff. But what's funny about this is Harry Chapin, his brothers were like a great singing group and very talented. And Harry was the one who couldn't sing. Like Harry was the odd one out. And they're like, Harry, we can't, you're not good enough. And so he went out on his own and found his own voice and became the biggest star of all. And was such a human guy. Would give the shirt off his back to anybody. Didn't care about whether he was losing money. He was party to so many great causes. It was never about the money to him. He would have impoverished himself to do the right thing. A really remarkable guy who wrote some of the greatest songs of all time. It's beautiful.
Harry died young, of course, only 38.
Yes,
back in 1981.
So sad. A doc here called Women Composers, a cinematic search for their lives in music by Kira Steckaway and Tim Van Beveren. This is the story of 3 amazing female composers you probably never heard of: Fanny Hensel, Lily Boulanger, and Mel Bonis. It's terrific. I mean, as a father of a daughter, this is the kind of thing you really want your daughter to see, because it is a routine thing where my daughter says, do only boys get 2? Do only men get 2? And you don't want your daughters growing up thinking that there's something walled off to them. And so I am grateful for docs like this that sort of say, no, you know what? There are some women can compose too. And I'm going to save that one till last. The Truffle Hunters. Did you see The Truffle Hunters?
I did not.
I had to review this for Film Week. This is the wackiest dump. These people. I mean, look, it's good. It is, but it's about people whose job is to basically find truffles. And what an awful. They got their dogs and they're sniffing out truffles in the forest, and it's just. I can't think of a worse way to live your life.
But whatever. A pig. Speaking of pigs, they use dogs because that Nick Cage movie.
Yeah, Pig. That's right. Apocalypse 45, the extended director's cut, is just devastating, especially now in times of war again. This is all about the conclusion of World War II, which I hope we aren't starting to relive again. But this is all new footage, narrated by 24 survivors from the end of the war, who are sort of putting their stories to the pictures that you see. It's very personal. It's very intimate. It's all previously unseen footage, and really, really nicely put together. Very, very powerful.
Yeah.
And then lastly here, we finally have on Blu-ray, thanks to VCI and MVD, Chariots of the Gods, Tim. Eric Von Daniken's Chariots of the Gods. How do we feel about this film 50 years later?
Well, it still plays, I suppose. You
know what? It was when I was 5 years old watching this, and Von Daniken is showing all of this archaeological stuff and pyramids and Easter Island and hieroglyphs and making the case, and with all this juxtaposition and stories from the Bible that aliens have visited the earth. The story of Elijah going to heaven was a spaceship. This picture on a cave painting is a spaceship. This is an alien. Aliens built the... Man, when I was 5, that was the greatest thing in the world.
This movie gave birth to an entire industry of films. It's right up to ancient aliens and mysteries.
Oh yeah, we're still doing it.
Unsolved mysteries, all that stuff with it. Yeah, but it kind of all begins here, there. So yeah, it plays exactly like it did 100 years ago. What about Live at Mr. Kelly's? I thought I saw that on.
Oh yeah, Live at Mr. Kelly's. Sure,
which was just a fantastic doc about this place. It's really two places: London House and Mr. Kelly's, which was a club. Well, it was Chicago, right?
I think so. Yeah, right. It was.
It was just this wonderful, wonderful restaurant nightclub where everyone gathered. Kind of think of Playboy After Night, that Hugh Hefner show. Mr. Kelly's is the place where everybody went after they taped that Hugh Hefner show. And it was actually that. The Hugh Hefner, that was a set, with people kind of, but Mr. Kelly's was the actual joint. And you just had all of the great comedians. And again, it was just this wonderful place, black and white, and Jewish and men and women and all the Dick Gregory. And
it's
just fantastic.
Herbie Hancock and Barbra Streisand and Bob
and the
Newhart.
Music. Let's not forget the music. Yeah.
Bette Midler and Richard Pryor. And it's just, everybody's just showing up there. They're just it's a great celebrity hangout, and I never knew about this. I had no idea, because it basically kind of ended in the 70s. So this is something that was going on when I was watching Outer Space Chariots of the Gods and Outer Space Connection. So I wasn't into all these people at the time, but it's nice to see everybody really young, and Steve Martin when he had dark hair. It's wild.
How many people? Because we think of places, particularly being from LA, we think of the Comedy Store and the Laugh Factory. But there were places all over in the Midwest that drew a certain crowd of people. Johnny Carson and Dick Cavett.
Club culture.
Yeah, Tom Dresden, those kind of guys. Neat documentary that is.
I'm going to do a little listener mail thing here real quickly, just as an interlude. So we got a great email from Al Lai, who writes us often, and he asked me a real funny thing in email, and I thought it'd be fun to share on the show. So he first off, Ed Lauter or Kevin Dobson?
Ed Lauter.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. Yeah, Ed Lauter. Those are the two character actors. Go look them up. You've seen him in absolutely everything.
You have.
But I agree. Ed Lauter for sure. He has the bald head and is much more much more intimidating guy. Okay, next one: Bonnie Franklin or Linda Lavin or Nancy Dussault?
Ooh, that one's tougher. Because I love me some Linda Lavin. Alice, right?
A neighbor of mine, by the way.
Oh, really?
Still. You see her bouncing around every once in a while. And she shows up in Being the Ricardos for the first time in many, many years, by the way.
But Bonnie Franklin was, of course, the mother to Valerie Bertinelli. Yeah. So just because that juxtaposition, because me and Valerie Bertinelli, we had a thing going there. Yeah. So I think I might have to go with Bonnie Franklin just because.
See, I got to go with Nancy Dussault because she had to put up with Ted Knight and Jim J. Bullock on Too Close for Comfort. So I think that was a heavy lift. She held it down.
Yeah.
And then the last one, Robert Blake or Robert Wagner.
Well, look, Robert Blake actually killed somebody. So,
according to Lana Wood, so did Robert Wagner.
He was never convicted. Blake went to jail. So we know he killed somebody. Wagner, hey, Beretta, though, Beretta,
I know.
And of course,
in Cold Blood,
that he was. Robert Blake is far and away the better actor. That's for sure. No doubt about that. Well, I guess, I don't know. Maybe you don't agree.
You know what? Robert Blake is far and away the better actor, but Bob Wagner, for me, is Jonathan Hart and Prince Valiant, and he married Natalie Wood twice. I know Lana thinks he killed her, but nonetheless, he's not convicted. So as far as I'm concerned, he's somebody that Natalie Wood loved twice. That's enough for me.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Yeah. All right. What are we going to dip into now?
I was looking at those 4Ks.
Yeah, let's do it.
Looper, is that the movie or the series?
Sure is. No, it's the movie. It's the movie with Joseph Gordon-Levitt doing his very, very best Bruce Willis impression.
Yeah,
which is pretty darn good.
Playing Bruce Willis better than Bruce Willis, who's also in that movie. And that might be the last quote unquote real Bruce Willis movie.
It was
2012. I think this might be the last real Bruce.
Yeah, it's the last one before he started doing the grindstone paydays and throwing it in.
And anyway, it's one of my favorite. It's one of my favorite time travel, time whatever movies. It really, really is. I love the way they do time travel in Looper. Basically, somebody gets in this thing. It kind of looks like a chicken cage, and they shake the camera. And boom, they've traveled. They open up the chicken cage and they've traveled in time, and that's as deep as they get into it. So that's what I love about Looper. And Looper, though it's sci-fi and action and drama, Looper is really just a love story. That's really all it is.
It is. Love story. And Emily Blunt is great in it. And this is the movie that got Rian Johnson the Star Wars gig. So, but he's off doing his whodunits now for Netflix. But still, pretty terrific film. Really pretty terrific film. Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Bruce Willis playing the same person, at odds with himself across time. Really, really very, very cool. Catwoman Hunted is a DC animated movie on 4K. Their 4K DC stuff always looks really, really good. This is coming out now with, Matt's new Batman film, which also has Catwoman in it, coming out soon. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, I like the take on Selina in this one in particular, because it's all about it's not Batman, it's Catwoman, and so it gets to be a little bit darker and kind of introduce some other characters in a very, very interesting way. And I think it's fine.
A lot of great voices. You got Kelly Hugh and you got Keith David, and you got Jonathan Frakes. Great voices in there, particularly if you happen to know those. Keith David's can't miss his, he's.
But you kind of got to really be into Catwoman to kind of get into it. It's very much rooted in Catwoman lore. Yeah. Resident Evil, Welcome to Raccoon City. Why is this still going, Tim?
There it is, right? Why is this still going? And
I mean, this is like, I've lost track. They don't even number them anymore. There are so many Resident Evil movies.
This is not a what was her name? Who was in all those movies?
Mila Jovovich.
Yeah, Mila Jovovich. This is not.
Yeah, no, she tapped out years ago.
Yeah.
This is more. They're still. They're now we're back to Raccoon City, which you wouldn't even know is a thing unless you've seen all the previous films. So I guess this is just for people who are hooked on it. But does this warrant a 4K? I don't know. It's kind of it's an all new cast. None of them are really recognizable. I guess they figure the brand now transcends everything else. But anyway, Movies Anywhere codes for all of these.
The Green Mile. Do I see the Green Mile?
Yeah, Green Mile in 4K.
Wow, man. That was 99. Frank Darabont adapting Stephen King, and the great Michael Clark Duncan, of course, look, this is I always appreciated the Green Mile more than I liked it. I didn't really, but it was a hell of an adaptation. It's no Shawshank Redemption.
That's the thing. I think everybody kind of, and I was one of them, and I want to be fair to this film because Darabont peaked with Shawshank and then went straight downhill.
Yeah.
And then it was like whatever that Jim Carrey movie was, with the theater. What was that thing?
Oh, yeah. I feel
the Impossible or something like that. And none of these movies lived up to Shawshank, and so we really kind of all dumped on them without realizing that Shawshank is like a once in a millennium kind of movie.
Yeah.
And because this was also based on a Stephen King short story, I think everybody thought, oh, it's going to go in the same place, and it does. It almost can't. But there's a lot of good stuff in this, and I don't even see how you make this movie without Michael Clarke Duncan. I just don't. He's, so there's a lot to be said for this. And, Michael Clarke Duncan he's that gentle giant with that voice that lives in a register that no human vocal cords should even be able to get to. And he yet also such an amazing actor because there's so much sensitivity to that giant hulking frame of his. You can't find that but once in a generation.
Yeah.
And that he makes the movie. It's not Tom Hanks. It's Michael Clarke Duncan who makes the movie.
Yep. That's so true. So true.
Some decent extras on here. Darabont does a commentary, and it's very, very good. Of all of these, I gotta say, I feel like Resident Evil and Catwoman don't necessarily earn the 4K. Looper does. Looper really earns it. Green Mile. I think it could and should have been a better transfer, but they're working with some older elements. But parts of it look really, really dazzling, and the blacks are just really super crisp in some of these scenes.
Look, Green Mile could have helped itself out. That movie's over 3 hours, a little bit over 3 hours long.
I know
it could have helped itself out. You dude, cut an hour of this out of here. But whatever.
Let me mention some Flickr Alley stuff, if I could. We've had this kind of sitting around for a few weeks. And, Flickr Alley, it has a great library of old silent classics for the most part. There's some really, really wonderful stuff here. So I want to put this on people's radar. This is Francis X. Bushman, is a film by Lon Davis. And this is from the Niles SNA Silent Film Museum. Francis X. Bushman is probably somebody that's just completely and totally unknown to anybody. And that's why you should probably expose yourself to this, because what it does is it's a really interesting documentary that goes and it digs up all of this archival material to kind of resurrect this guy who was a big silent actor but didn't make it to the sound era and has been completely and totally forgotten in time. And there are pieces and some complete films of some of his previous films, and then there are things that he did when he was no longer able to make movies. He was able to certainly do some radio. For example, there's a 1957 CBS radio drama that he narrates here. So you hear his voice, but you see him in all this other stuff from 1913, 14, 1911. It really kind of. It's a fascinating career, and it's a very sobering look at what can happen to somebody when the world just changes on your watch and your career suddenly can't keep up with the times. It happened to so many actors. Julien Duvivier in the 1920s, Cinema of Discovery. Duvivier, really a kind of an amazing and very prolific filmmaker, and this is mostly 1920s, couple of 1930s films that he made. I love Duvivier's stuff. Not everybody does. Tim, I don't know if you're necessarily into some of this stuff, but it's really, really it's significant because he pioneered a lot of techniques that live on and that were very much ahead of their time. And wonderful movies here, including The Maelstrom of Paris, which is great, from 1928. The Mystery of the Eiffel Tower, made the same year. The movies from the 1930s are Mother Hummingbird and Lady's Paradise, also very, very good. And it includes the earliest of these films, 1926's Carrot Top, plus lots and lots and lots of extras, video appreciations and a booklet, and really wonderful stuff. So that's there.
I like all that stuff with Jean Gabon.
Yeah. Repeat Performance is an old film noir from 1947 that has been restored by the UCLA Film and Television Archives. That is absolutely terrific. Includes a great introduction by film historian and noircheologist Eddie Miller, which is really terrific. There is, excuse me, also another cool noir, The Beast Must Die.
Oh, yeah.
From 1952. That's an Argentine noir, which is really, really terrific. That also includes some wonderful extras, including a conversation between an Argentine film archivist and the son of the film's director. An Argentine noir, I didn't even know it was a thing, but it's pretty great. In the Shadow of Hollywood is highlights from Poverty Row. Poverty Row, of course, was a term that applied to these really cheap, quickly made movies that were, in the early 1930s, early to mid 1930s, that were made basically for no money and primarily marketed to various markets around the country that were out of the mainstream. And some pretty decent films here. They're raw, but The Crime of Dr. Crespi, Woman in the Dark, Back Page, and Midnight from 1934, aka Call It Murder. And the last one's here, another restored film noir, The Bitter Stems. This is also an Argentine noir film from 1956. Ooh. Yeah, that one's not as good as the other one, but still pretty good. And then on the German front, we have Waxworks from 1924, which is absolutely terrifying. This is a Paul Lenny German expressionist movie that just makes my blood run cold. The original German version has not survived. This is the English edition, but it's still plenty chilling, and it's the whole wax museum thing that just freaks me out. And then F.W. Murnau's Phantom. All of these are on Blu-ray. Phantom, of course, one of Murnau's all-time great films. Deeply underrated, made in 1922. You can get this here. This is a Blu-ray MOD. It's manufacturer on demand, so you can order it anytime from Flickr Alley. Just go for all of these to flickralley.com and knock yourselves out. They have a wonderful streaming service too. I have to say, Flickr Alley's streaming library is to die for. It's absolutely great. What else, Tim?
Well, you want to go to do some TV?
Yeah, let's do some TV.
I see the second season of Stargirl. Stargirl, which I know people find this ridiculous, but after Supergirl, Stargirl is my favorite. Because I'm getting a little tired of the Flash. They need to go ahead and wrap that up.
Yeah, they do.
But the Stargirl has sort of dragged me along. I love all the ones that have the sort of sassy teenage girl kicking ass in them. So second season of Stargirl is kind of fun.
I like her outfit.
Yeah, that's so wicked cool. That of course she has that staff. It's the narrative in that show is kind of all over the place. I must admit.
Yeah, it is.
You just really have no idea what the hell's going on, and you're never quite sure. Like, is this set in modern times or it's set in the 50s? What's with the car and all that? Luke Wilson. But in any case, I dig it. And I can't wait for the next season. So second season of Stargirl, kind of cool.
Yep. I also like that Solomon Grundy is a character in this.
Oh yeah.
That's I nerd out over that kind of stuff. Power Book 3, Raising Kanan, the complete first season from Starz. Power Book continues to be a really, really interesting. This is Lionsgate produced, but the various books of Power Book are really interesting. This all takes place in Jamaica, Queens in 1991. It's prequel to the Power series. In that larger kind of universe franchise, and some pretty rough stuff, but there's some great performances here. They find some really, really good young actors, and it's all heavy, intense, street level, surviving in the street stuff. But the family relationships are what drive this, and I like how they've kind of expanded this universe and brought in all of these different characters and relationships. It's been really quite a thing to watch. Very, very smart writing.
I watched Legacies, believe it or not. I kind of fell into watching Legacies.
Now in its third season.
Yeah, now in its third season. We're looking at it right there. And it took me till the third season to figure out what the hell is going on in this show. But the reason why I watch it is because the central character is this girl, her name's Hope, whatever. And she is the daughter of a vampire / werewolf hybrid. And I'm like, now that's a hell of a mashup. Right there, she just goes around sort of like kicking everybody's asses. It's kind of funny, whatever. Anyway, I dig Legacies. I just kind of like the way it's put together. So what do we got here? Season
3. Season 3. Season 3. And I think I think it's on season 4 right now on television. But as far as the disc releases here, we're in season 3. This thing heals the complete first season. So this is a Stars show, nowhere at all on my radar until this thing turned up on our doorstep here. So this is about small town pro wrestling. Yeah. Which I was exposed to a little bit in that David Arquette doc. Yeah. When David Arquette decides he wants to become a pro wrestler, which he does, it's a great doc. It's just so weird. He goes to the small town wrestling circuit to do it. These are guys who do not make a living at anything, least of all wrestling. They do it because they set the crap up in somebody's backyard and they hurt each other because they love it. It's just weird. But it's a circuit, and there are people who actually make money on this, a little bit of money. It's like what Rocky was doing at the beginning of Rocky. Yeah. Hey, you want to make $50? Yeah. Come and do it. Yeah. It's that kind of thing.
It's kind of like a feeder system. This show's kind of dramatic. It's about these two brothers. And one of them, in wrestling, somebody's always the villain, somebody's always the hero, and one of them is the villain, the other one's the hero, and then they sort of like have that equivalent dynamic outside the ring. It's it's a very, very dramatic show, very dramatic.
Well, I like their names, Jack Spade and Ace Spade. Those are the brothers, and it is a really fascinating backdrop for a show. I got to admit, it's I never would have expected that. Yeah, we got another Ultraman here, Ultraman Zero, the Chronicle. I have decided I can't tell any Ultraman from any other Ultraman. I can't. All these shows bleed into each other. They're like Power Rangers shows. They all kind of look the same. It's like the horns and the colors are different, but everything else is the same. I can't make heads or tails of it. But I guess if you've stuck with this thing for this long, knock yourselves out. But I don't know. It's gone on too long for me. I still love the original Ultraman.
Oh, the original Ultraman. That's the one. That's the only one I can. The live action thing, not those animated things. Let's look at some of the foreign stuff. I see La Dolce Vita. What the hell is that up with that?
Oh yeah.
What are we doing?
So
Blu-ray now?
Yeah.
4K.
It's Blu-ray.
Okay.
And La Dolce Vita is on Blu-ray at long last, thanks to Paramount. I don't know how Paramount wound up with La Dolce Vita. It's a little bit weird, but it's a decent transfer. Not great. Should be better. Has no extras whatsoever other than an introduction by Martin Scorsese. That's what's a little frustrating. So yeah, I'm grateful for it, but I kind of feel like Criterion should do their thing. Criterion really belongs on the case there. They did not necessarily do right by this. That we need something else. Do have some other interesting stuff in foreign though here.
Baise-Moi, that film from 2000, which is real. I remember that movie being extremely intense and kind of controversial.
More than controversial. It was like people were offended, deeply offended.
Yeah.
This is about two women who go on a crime spree. I mean, it's sort of like I Spit on Your Grave with two women instead of one, and with a lot of French art film credentials. But it's violent, and it's amoral, and it's intense. I will say this, there's a really good commentary on here by Kat Ellinger, who does a ton of these for Kino. And she really does address it in detail rather extensively. And it's quite good. It goes into all of the, what's controversial, what's not, it's pretty thorough, and, make up your own minds. But there's also a 40-minute documentary on here with interviews that kind of try to smooth a lot of that over.
I wonder that's 22 years
It's Natural Born Killers with two women.
With two women. That's 22 years ago, right? I haven't seen that movie in 22 years, but I remember that entire conversation and how, but I wonder if now that movie, exactly as constituted 22 years ago, would even, if we would be talking about any of it. I wonder if we would. I kind of think maybe not.
And then Ryosuke Hamaguchi, who did Drive My Car and is Oscar nominated at present, actually made two films in 1 year, believe it or not. Yes, the three-hour movie, but also made this 2-hour movie called Wheel of Fortune and Fantasy, which is also out now on Blu-ray from Film Movement. And this won the Silver Bear at the Berlin Film Festival. It got the jury prize. So, I mean, he made 2 highly acclaimed movies in 1 year, 5 hours worth, which is quite a feat and really kind of a career topper. What's funny is in our LAFCA meeting, so our good friend Bob Strauss, who is just so deadpan and wonderful. I dearly love Bob. Bob will go kind of get a bee in his bonnet and he'll keep going back to a certain well. And through the whole meeting, he kept reminding everybody that Hamaguchi's best film was actually Wheel of Fortune and Fantasy. I know you all love Drive My Car, but I'm going to Wheel of Fortune and Fantasy. And it was like every 5 or 10 minutes, Bob would be like, Wheel of Fortune and Fantasy. He'd remind everybody. Yeah. So this is, if you like Drive My Car, I think you will like this. I actually agree with Bob. I like this better. I think it's a better film. I think it's a tighter film. I think it's a more interesting story. It has his kind of interesting, subdued oddness to it. You have to kind of get into his groove, into his world, his universe, his way of seeing things.
His pace.
His what pace, really that's is. A great way of putting it. Yeah.
There's a pace, and you have to just sort of like let yourself slide into that pace, and then
But it really is. This is a really interesting character piece, and love triangle with some very unusual, almost surrealistic edges to it. It's quite good.
That Luciano film is that 1973 film? Italian film? Yeah.
Yes, it is. It's the 1973 Italian film. It's which I had not seen before, and it's a little bit odd because, Lucky Luciano showed up in a ton of American movies in like the 80s and 90s, right? I mean, there was a lot of stuff from Bugsy to, what else was there? There was like Billy Bathgate. I mean, there were a whole bunch of them that had a variety of people playing Lucky Luciano. I think, didn't Ben Kingsley play him in Bugsy?
Yeah.
And
Meyer Lansky, but something like that. Yeah,
it might have been Meyer Lansky. I can't keep track of who played who. Somebody played Lansky. Somebody played Mobsters. It was Mobsters where they're all young. So there's like a whole bunch of them where there a lot of people playing them all. It's look, Bugsy, Meyer, and Lucky. They're in all these movies. Anyway, this is the one I had never seen.
Which is interesting because this is an Italian film, but Vincent Gardina shows up in it, which I thought was kind of interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I love Francesco Rosi. I think he's one of the great filmmakers of the last 50 years. It's a very interesting take. It's just sort of not what you expect.
Yeah,
maybe that's what it is. I mean, it kind of starts in 1946, and he's getting out of he's out of prison, and he goes back to Sicily.
Yeah, which is why you have all these interesting Italian actors, Sicilian actors.
And as and that's where he kind of resurrects his life in Sicily. So I mean, so it's about a particular episode in Luciano's life, and it's not all of that American stuff to say.
But you still get Rod Steiger and Edmund O'Brien.
You do, you do, and Vincent Gardenia. So I mean, it kind of skirts two different styles. It's shot very, very raw and rough in a kind of a documentary style, but it's an unusual movie. I'm still not quite sure what I think of it, to be honest.
Interesting. I was wondering if it was that one.
It is indeed. And let me pull another one out here. The Unknown Man of Shandagore is by Jean-Louis Roy. This is really, I mean, most people have probably never heard of either Jean-Louis Roy or this movie. So let me kind of frame this for you. This is a Cold War spy thriller that was made in the middle of 1960s, and many people thought this was lost. And it's kind of been lovingly restored, courtesy of the French Cinematheque, and given, brought back as close to possible to its original glory. Found a lot of the original elements and really did this. It's a little bit stark and weird I mean, like the notes on this thing compare it to Doctor Strangelove, Alphaville, Doctor Who, and the Avengers. Those are the and when you read that and you go, none of that stuff fits together. That makes no sense at all. If you were to say this, like, well, it's a little bit Godard meets Kubrick meets the Avengers on TV, and then with a dash of Doctor Who, I'm just gonna take a sleeping pill and leave this earth. That doesn't make any sense. But when you see it, it does kind of, like, it has some dark comedic edges. It also has a little bit of surrealism to it, and there is a satirical edge. And it's a really, really interesting film, especially now that we're living through a possible new Cold War. And Jean-Louis Roy, not a filmmaker who was ever necessarily on my radar, but I will say it's a really interesting cast too, which includes Serge Gainsbourg in the cast, which is, always nice to see Serge. But yeah, it's worth checking out. The Unknown Man of Shandigor, Shandigor. It's worth a look. A curious little long lost movie.
Interesting.
We got some new movies here. Tim, let's talk about King Richard for a second, because we teased it earlier.
And, they nominated Best Picture. Director Ronaldo not nominated for Best Director. That we talked about that a little bit. That
supporting actress,
Best
supporting actress.
Yes, exactly. Which would be interesting if Will were to win. And what's your name? It's it'll pop in my head in a second. Were to also win.
Ingenue Ellis.
Ingenue Ellis, thank you very much. She was in Soul Man. She was just really great. So, and that might present an interesting moment, not unlike the moment that Denzel and Halle both won, I guess, back in 2000. So that might present an interesting moment.
Here's what I genuinely love about the movie, and I think there is some bitterness about movies that have gone straight to streaming, but which is why I don't think Campion's film is going to win, because there's a lot of bitterness about Netflix not putting movies into theaters. But Warner Brothers is still a theatrical company, and they are, under their new ownership, committed to putting movies into theaters. So I think that's going to bode well for this, but also because people love Will Smith. But you know what? It's a great story. This is the kind of, when we talk about what's wrong with the Academy Awards, like why nobody watches, it's because the studios generally are not making and marketing and pushing movies like this. This is the kind of movie that they used to make routinely in the 1970s and 80s and 90s that would get a ton of Oscar nominations. And you would release this into 3,000-4,000 screens. And it was not a streaming movie. And if it weren't for COVID, this probably would have made $110, $20, $30 million in theatrical release. And it should have. But this is what we should be talking about. These kinds of movies. Why is Paramount not making this kind of a movie? Why is Universal not making this kind of a movie? Why won't Disney make this kind of a movie and put it into theaters? That's the problem, is that the companies that have the pipeline to theaters are not making the kinds of movies that the Academy wants to nominate. Warner Brothers does. Not as much as we want them to, but they do, and this is one of them. Dune is another. But I really think I really tip my hat to Warner Brothers for getting behind this movie, because it's heartfelt and wonderful, and it captures so many great pieces of this story, and it tells it so accurately and so well, because it doesn't gloss over anything. This is the story. This is the story of Venus and Serena and their dad. It really is. It doesn't make anything up.
Absolutely. It's pretty straightforward. What's interesting about that movie to me, it's a movie called King Richard. The movie really ought to be called the Venus Williams story. Venus is the central focus of, and particularly once we start playing tennis, and what's going, because, that's just the way that story played out. But nevertheless, a good movie, for sure. While at the same time, Ghostbusters Afterlife, was,
my goodness.
That's a big old studio movie. And, Jason, and here's Dan. And of course, we lost, Harold a while ago, and so I don't know. And what's funny is people were all sort of like funky about that girl Ghostbusters, girl Ghostbusters. Get our Ghostbusters back, and you got your Ghostbusters back, and you know what, they suck. Because the Ghostbusters were two fabulous movies made in the 80s, and we're done now. Unless you want
I
to count,
agree.
unless you want to count that cartoon.
I really think they just kept going. This goes to the well needlessly.
Oh, everybody's back, but it didn't make any difference.
Well, yeah, everybody's back. Well, but what it tries to do is it tries to be a Ghostbusters movie at the same time that it's a Stranger Things movie. It sort of wants to be Stranger Things imposed on Ghostbusters, and it doesn't work. I mean, I love Paul Rudd. But it just, there's something not quite right about this. And, it's too bad. It's really unfortunate. Did you see the 355?
I did.
Oh my gosh.
And look, hey, first of all, Simon. Simon's a hell of a producer. Simon's produced a whole bunch of really important films that you all would know, but every now and again he wants to direct something. He directed that Phoenix version of the X-Men. X-Men Phoenix or something like that, which of course is the worst of the of the X-Men film. And this one here, he has, you got Jessica and Penelope and Bing Bing and
Jessica produced this.
And Jessica produced, and they're doing the whole secret agent thing, and the women are all the badass secret agents in this thing. But it's just this big mess of a movie. And it begins with this. This is the way this movie opens. You have this kid, right? The kid, he's invented this device, this little code that's on this hard drive. And he looks at the bad guy, the guy who was going to be the bad guy. He says, I have this code on this hard drive, and with this code, I can bring down nations. I can take airplane out. He takes the airplane out, and he says, I'm the only one that has it, and this is the only one. And I thought to myself, really? You're going to say that right to this guy? And the guy says, so you're the only one that can do it, and that's the only one? Are you sure? Yeah, it is. So the guy shoots him in the head and takes it. And I'm like, seriously? That's got to be the dumbest moment. I would have shot him. I would have shot him in the head and took it. So, but anyway, whatever. But I appreciate the idea is to, just make this sort of big action, run around, shoot them up with the ladies running around and shoot stuff up. So, whatever. If you're not doing anything else, throw it on in the background. It won't bother you.
But here's the other thing. I think you could, look, if you're going to put these 5 actresses in a movie, and we're talking about Diane Kruger, Penelope Cruz, Jessica Chastain, Lupita Nyong'o, and Bing Bing Fan, if you're putting those 5 actresses in a movie, I'm going to argue that you should make all 5 of them look as fabulous as you possibly can in every single frame.
Yeah.
And I don't think they do.
No.
I think Diane Kruger, Jessica Chastain, and Lupita do not look great through much of this movie. He tries to frump them up. He tries to frump them up. And Bing Bing Fan, not great either. Like Penelope Cruz looks fabulous through the whole movie. She's the only one. Yeah. I'm sorry, that's a problem. Make all 5 of them look fabulous.
Hey, you know why? Because Bond needs to look fabulous. Too.
Yes.
Hey, put that tux on.
That's it.
Craig or whoever the next one is. The protege. Martin Campbell here. I don't know. What do you think about it? First of all, Maggie Q. Love me some Maggie Q. Michael Keaton and Samuel L. Jackson. In this film, it's one of those movies where I just know that at a given moment, X number of years ago, this would have been a big old hit film.
It would have been. And by the way, this is available on 4K. I should have set this aside for the 4K coverage, but didn't think to. So anyway, that caveat out of the way. Yes, the protege. You're right. It would have been a big old massive release. Back in the 90s. Yeah. This would have been huge. I mean, can you imagine Samuel Jackson and Michael Keaton and Maggie Q in the 1990s? Yeah. It would have been amazing.
Yeah. And I like it too. I like that movie. It was cool.
No, it is. It's good. For some reason, it just doesn't get the traction now that it would have then. Perhaps because it's Lionsgate and they don't go out, they don't throw the big party like some of the studios do. But Martin Campbell he still got it. I mean, they should bring him back for another James Bond movie or two. He still really, really nails these things. Very, very good. Good audio commentary with Martin Campbell too. Smart guy. I'm glad he's still making stuff. A couple of kiddie sort of oriented things here. Addams Family 2, the animated version. Some good voice work here. Bill Hader and Oscar Isaac, Charlize Theron, Bette Midler. Snoop Dogg as It. It's the weirdest damn thing ever. Chloe Moretz. But you know what? I don't know. The CG animation, 3D animation for Addams Family doesn't, I don't know. It doesn't quite work for me, but it is what it is, I guess. If you like the first one, you like that one. And then Clifford, the Big Red Dog. So if you've seen Dave Chappelle's latest Netflix special, you'll understand why I cannot see anything with Clifford in it ever again. Because Dave does a whole Clifford thing that gives it a whole new context. So now when I look at Clifford, I just think of Chappelle's shtick. But I also have to say Clifford should remain an animated thing. Taking a great big giant CGI red dog and making a live action movie about this thing, and wasting the talents of Keenan and John Cleese. No, just don't do that. This is kind of an embarrassment. Badly written, badly scripted, really juvenile, and the visual effects are not that good. And again, you start sticking people into these embarrassing cameos like Cleese and Keenan, and I'm really going to check out. I didn't like this movie at all. It is on Blu-ray for those of you who want to suffer from Paramount.
Clifford the Big Red Dog is a animated series on PBS. That's what it should.
That does not need to. That's what it should stay. Exactly.
It's all good. Like where it was.
Anything else that you're looking?
What is Superhost? Was that?
Let's see. Superhost.
Was that the nutty horror film?
Superhost. Where is Superhost?
I think it was this horror film that I saw about these bloggers sort of roaming around. When they it was kind of an interesting little horror movie. If it's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, that may be on the release this week. I did not see it. Didn't see it. Yeah. I was going to dip into The Dry. Did you see The Dry?
No. What do we have there?
So let me, and I'll take us out on this. The Dry is worth a quick mention. This thing did not get nearly enough traction. It's an IFC Films release, so it didn't show up in too many theaters, and the pandemic screwed with it. But this is a procedural thriller with Eric Bana. It's an Australian procedural thriller. Really, really, really good. It's very deliberately paced, but it's absolutely fascinating. Eric Bana is the Australian equivalent of an FBI agent. And, they have their own kind of federal investigation operation. And he is like a really, really, really sharp, let's just say FBI agent, Aussie FBI agent. But now a childhood buddy of his has died. So he's got to go back home to his like little outbacky, place. And The Dry is because it's like a drought going on. And he wants to get to the bottom of what happened with his buddy's death. And I won't tell you the circumstances, but they're really gruesome circumstances surrounding his buddy's death. And so he, instead of just going to the funeral, he now turns investigator and starts turning up a whole lot of stuff that nobody wants him turning up. And a lot of this ties into his own childhood with this guy. And you get these flashbacks and, so it becomes not just a procedural, but it becomes like a self-exploration, like coming to grips with your demons. It is so incredibly well done. I mean, really, really well directed by Robert Connolly, who's a veteran of television and films. And, he's an Aussie guy, never worked outside of Australia. You've probably never heard of him, but he's been doing stuff on television forever. So Robert Connolly co-wrote it and directed it and does a hell of a job. It's really, really well done. And Eric Bana, it's maybe the best thing that he's acted in years. So it's a nice discovery. The Dry with Eric Bana, really, really it's a good find.
Man, I almost forgot about Eric Bana. Man,
I know, right?
I do see a couple of wicked Criterions there. I see Miller's Crossing.
Oh yeah. You want? Let's do Criterion. Let's do the Criterion.
I see that Miller's Crossing right there, man. That's 1990. I'd forgotten about that. Joel and Ethan. Of course, who was Denzel's Macbeth by himself? Was it Ethan or Joel? I think it's Joel.
It's Joel. And I have not had a chance to get through all of the extras on these Criterions yet. But you know what? Let's talk about them anyway.
I mean, first of all, Miller's fucking Crossing. All right, let's just say that. One of the best gang. One of the things I loved about that is that it was Irish. Mostly Irish.
Yeah, right. Irish mob. Yeah.
Mob and not the Italian mob we were so used to, particularly in 1990, because we were coming up on another one of those those Coppola films. 50th anniversary of Godfather. We talked about that today.
That's right. That's right. 50th anniversary coming out on 4K. The whole thing is coming out on 4K soon. So
interesting thing. And with Gabriel Byrne and Albert Finney and John Turturro, this movie was just a wicked movie, man. Just one of the best.
Find it in your heart.
Oh, yeah. It was just so beautiful, so beautifully done. And it was in that little run that the Coens were having that included Raising Arizona and Barton Fink and the Hudsucker Proxy, and
it was just that golden era.
Oh man,
it was a golden run. It was a golden run. And I was not fair to this film the first time I saw it, and I criticized it for being too complicated. What I should have said was, I'm not smart enough to understand this movie.
I don't know. It's a wonderful movie. It's of course an adaptation of Dashiell Hammett.
Yeah.
So there's just the Red
but it is a true noir. It's a true noir in the sense that you have got to really pay attention to this movie. Like, don't just throw this thing on and expect to make sense of it. Put it on, sit down, grab a bowl of popcorn and some snacks, turn the lights out, and be prepared to think.
Yeah.
Because this makes demands of you. You've got to see details and follow things. You got to be on it.
Who's doing it? And the reason why it's complicated, as you said, is because it's actually an adaptation of two different Dashiell Hammett novels,
which I did not know at the time.
Yeah, Red Harvest and etc. So that's why it's such. But it's just so beautifully beautiful. Michael Jeter and so many people, Steve Buscemi, so many people in this movie that were just outstanding.
Well, there is a conversation on here between author Megan Abbott and the Coens about the subject of film noir and the inspiration of this, and that I have watched, and it's really, really good. And what a great movie, and so nice that got the Criterion treatment. Other Criterions out, Love Affair, the famous Leo McCarey movie with Irene Dunne and Charles Boyer.
Oh yeah.
From 1939, one of the great 1939 movies that everybody always forgets about because there are like 25 of them. This is a wonderful movie. I have not, there's some stuff on here that I really want to get to. There's an interview with Serge Bromberg, founder of Lobster Films, talking about the restoration of this thing that I'm really, really eager to get to.
We talk about Oscars. That was nominated for 6 or 7 Oscars, if I'm not mistaken, talking about that kind of movie.
Kind of movie. It's just it is a quintessential classic Hollywood movie. It just hits on all cylinders. It's really, really beautiful. And then there are a couple of radio adaptations and 2 short films by Leo McCarey on here with Charlie Chase, the famous comedian. The other 2 Criterions, Written on the Wind, another great Hollywood classic. This one from the 1950s, Douglas Sirk film with Rock Hudson, Lauren Bacall, Dorothy Malone, and Robert Stack. This is on Blu-ray. They're all on Blu-ray. What am I saying?
Yeah.
And this one also comes with a 2008 documentary that has a whole bunch of archival interviews in it with everybody involved. And then this is the other one that I just literally got done watching yesterday. I'm so glad. This includes some wonderful contribution by our very, very good friend Justin Chang, who, our good laugh colleague, who wrote an essay here that is absolutely fantastic. And the movie is Boat People by Ann Hui, the famous Hong Kong director. This was made in 1982. Ann Hui, a truly legendary figure, still making movies, one of the all-time great Hong Kong New Wave directors. I would love to see her get some greater recognition outside of Hong Kong for a change. It's never quite come to her. I've lobbied for it for a long time, but she is just a tremendous figure internationally and especially in Hong Kong film, but just as a world filmmaker, she's absolutely wonderful.
Gave us Andy Lau. And
Boat People is, it looks at the situation of Vietnamese refugees, in the wake of the Vietnam War. And it's an absolutely devastating, haunting, heartbreaking way of approach to the subject matter. It takes place years afterwards, and it's all seen through the eyes of George Lam, who is this Japanese photojournalist who goes to Vietnam and through his relationship with this teenage girl played by Season Ma, he kind of gets to the root of what's really going on with the boat people. And it just, the way the story unfolds, it's like a beautiful flower. It's just, it's tremendous. It's hard hitting, but it's poetic at the same time. And it's just so deeply meaningful.
Yeah,
And,
yeah. You have to remember, this is 1982. We're only 7 years, and they're probably shooting in 1988. So we're only 5, 6, 7 years from the Americans' involvement in Vietnam. So we're nowhere. The arrival of refugees from various different diasporas is still happening in the United States here, coming in from Cambodia, coming in from Laos, coming in from all kinds of places. So yeah.
It's tremendous. So I'm going to say right now, watch the press conference from the Cannes Film Festival on here, which is really wonderful. And please read Justin's essay because it's beautiful and he put so much good work into it. Should we call it there, Tim?
Let's call it.
Let's call it. All right. Listen, everybody, go to scpr.org or kpcc.org if you are planning on being in Los Angeles on March 20th, Sunday, from 1 to 3 p.m. You can come and see Tim and me and all of our colleagues on stage at the Ace Theater, adjacent to the Ace Hotel in downtown Los Angeles for our first live Oscar show, Film Week Oscar show in 2 years. It should be a grand bunch of fun. Mm-hmm. Until that time, we are hoping that the Academy will have a reconsideration of its dumb decision to sideline 8 categories and show them, taped in edited format during the show. Horrible decision. And other than that, sending all of our thoughts and most earnest and fervent prayers and feelings and everything else out to the people of Ukraine. Hopefully this nightmare ends soon. We have had listeners to this podcast from Ukraine in the past and Belarus, and it's we are thinking of you and hoping that the world returns to some level of stability very soon. All right, Tim. See you in a few weeks.
Good work, brother.